There's nothing quite like the holiday season. It's the best time of the year, but also far and away one of the most hectic. Simplify what you eat with Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service. My wife's a teacher, and Factor's had her covered for lunches at school. The jalapeno cheddar chicken is her favorite meal so far, while I've quickly taken to the creamy Parmesan chicken and green pepper and beef casserole as Ole Miss football rings in the postseason and it's prime recruiting season. We haven't skipped a beat at our house because we can rely on Factor. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes. All you have to do is heat and enjoy. What are you waiting for? Head on over to factormeals.com/TOC50 and use our special Talk of Champions promo code TOC50 to get 50% off. That's right. Factormeals.com/TOC50 and promo code TOC50 to get 50% off. Continue to support your wellness goals while feeling your best this holiday season. Try Factor today, a proud sponsor of the Talk of Champions podcast network. Happy Monday, post-Thanksgiving Monday, November 27th, 2023. This is another edition of, well, it's recruiting, so hashtag not committed. With me, Ben Garrett at Spirit Ben on Twitter, and him, Zach Berry at Zach_Berry, both right for the Ole Miss Spirit. OMSpirit.com, an affiliate of On3, and right now, if you sign up today, you can get a subscription to the Ole Miss Spirit, the best Ole Miss coverage anywhere on the internet, for the low, low price of $1. $1. Come on. Who wouldn't want to hang around at an Ole Miss bar all day at the cover charge over $1? That's effectively what this is. We're an online Ole Miss bar filled with fellow Ole Miss fans that you can argue with, that you can agree with, that you can conversate with. Just simply go to the Ole Miss Spirit, omspirit.com, affiliate of On3. And on this Monday, Ole Miss has concluded the regular season, obviously. Defeated Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl, and a lot has happened since. Jeff Lebby has been hired as the new head coach of Mississippi State. And I'm going to get into that with Brian Haydad on another podcast on the flagship because it's just too perfect. It's the most Mississippi State hire that they could have possibly made in the year 2023. And God bless them, that's exactly what they did. They hired Jeff Lebby, and now Ole Miss and Mississippi State. The rivalry adds another chapter. But that's not why we're here today.
Can I ask you something?
Yes, please do, Zach. I'm sorry. Thank you for interrupting me because I want to be honest with you. I feel like I was going in a weird direction there. So,
no, it's all good. Did you have a good Thanksgiving? First, I got to ask you, was it good?
I did have a good Thanksgiving. Did you have a good Thanksgiving? My Thanksgiving was filled with my nephew getting upset because my oldest brother, Daniel, we played. I came up with a brilliant idea. We all showed up at my mom and dad's house. It was me, my two brothers, and all of our family. And I came up with that. I was like, hey, let's all play football. That's what people do, what normal families do on Thanksgiving Day. Me and my brothers versus all, our kids, which is 6 of them. We're obviously
you're like the Humphreys.
Yeah.
From Gossip Girl.
Yeah. I've never seen Gossip Girl, but yes.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we went out there and my brother, Daniel, a former cornerback, could have played at the next level in JUCO. He wasn't a D1 guy, but he got JUCO offers. He stepped in front of his son's pass and took it back for 6. And my brother, my other brother and I, my twin brother and I, we celebrated accordingly because he had a pick 6, even though it was on his 7-year-old son. But his 7-year-old son is a younger version of him and got really mad and wanted to basically throw the football at him and then at me. And so it descended into chaos. And that was my Thanksgiving. Now it ended on a good note, 2 good notes. The Cowboys won, Ole Miss won. I love my family. We had a great time anyway. I'm just playing, but it was a typical Thanksgiving, well-intentioned and just an absolute glorious mess.
Well, that does sound fun.
Yeah.
When the kids get older, they probably want to get out and play, and then you can kind of relive the glory days.
I didn't want to well, I will say this. I threw my back out playing. This is the funny part because I'm the one out there going, all right, everybody, put your heels when we're guarding the end zone because it's 4th down. Heels on the end line. Let's go. Here we go. We got to play zone. Too high cover shell. I'm saying dumb shit.
You should have been telling Auburn that on Saturday.
Right. I mean, freeze. Hugh is always going to Hugh. He's always going to Hugh. I mean, 4th and 30. And I made the joke on Twitter, but 4th and 20 plus, 25 plus, 4th and 30. That's when you know you can get Hugh Freeze. And it's a joke because it's happened twice, but also twice he's done a really stupid thing. He called timeout before the play just to see what they're lined up in, only to come out and rush 2 and drop 8 and let Jalen Moreau just get a free throw into the end zone.
I mean,
Most
I guess you use the timeout because how much time was left after the touchdown?
20 seconds, maybe.
Okay, so you don't need it. You're not going to you don't need the timeouts for your last 20-second drive. So yeah, sure. But also, like, what else do you think they're going to line up in? They're throwing it to the end zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then to come out and then do the Hugh Freeze 4th and forever play defensive scheme, which is essentially rush 2 and play prevent. It's insanity to me. It's insanity to me. You had the Iron Bowl 1, and in the course of 40 seconds or whatever it was the most Hugh Freeze game ever. And
you mentioned the Cowboys. Did you see that stat that was going around on Twitter?
No.
Somebody had looked it up. I think it was like since 2012, every year on Thanksgiving, the Cowboys won. The home team won. I think that's what it was.
Okay.
So of course, after that, there were Ole Miss people on Twitter that were like, "Oh no," because the Cowboys. Who did they play? They whipped them.
The Commanders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
don't
like
be confused by the Bears here. I just like the hat. I think it looks dope.
I think Washington football
I look like
team
an idiot,
sounds
but
way
like
better.
Huh?
I always thought Washington football team was kind of cool.
I did too. I love that. It was a very European, bent.
I don't hate the Commanders.
Oh, I
like
the Commanders.
I like the W logo.
Yeah.
But I thought Washington football team sounded cool.
I'll never understand why big corporations just don't listen to their audiences sometimes and throw them a bone. I mean, the entire Washington fan base, it felt like there's this big online push to be the Washington Red Wolves, which is both unique and really cool. And they went with
shout out to Jones Boogie.
They went to the friggin' most generic thing they could have come up with. Let's be the Washington Commanders. What the Washington Generals was taken. Oh, it was? Oh, I get it now. Yeah. Come on. Let's just anyway, post-Thanksgiving show. Here we are. And Ole Miss recruiting. Now this is the recruiting season. Ole Miss finished with a second ever 10-win regular season. If they win the bowl game, which is probably going to be the Citrus, they would secure. Yeah. Okay. Don't you?
Well, that's what I thought, but our buddy Andy Staples at On 3 put out some projections yesterday, and he had the Rebels in the Cotton Bowl against Texas. As well as I do, Andy's about as connected as anyone in college football. So predicting that is certainly it caught some eyes and ears. I thought that was because I'm with you. I've been telling people since Thursday night that have asked. I think it's going to be basically a replay of that Egg Bowl, and Ole Miss is going to play Iowa, and it's going to be just the exact same game, but a defensive battle with Ole Miss finding ways to score and to try to quote slow down the Iowa offense, which they're already doing that themselves. But I thought that it was surefire going to be the Citrus Bowl playing in Orlando. If you're a Disney fan, go ahead and get your tickets now. But I don't know. Andy predicting that, because I don't think Andy's doing it as like a fun thing. Like, oh, it's, Arch Manning's over there. That would be fun if Ole Miss played them in a bowl game. Like, no, I think he actually probably talked to some folks.
Well, that's something I'd heard. It's something I'd heard for a little bit, was that the Cotton Bowl, if they can make it happen, would love the matchup of Texas versus Ole Miss. Having said that,
well, it makes a ton of sense. Obviously, in Dallas, lot of UT alum. They would bring a big crowd, and Ole Miss, huge alumni base in the state of Texas, and Ole Miss fans are going to travel. That would be a really fun one because, I mean, hell, that might be a straight 50-50 split of crowds just because I think Ole Miss fans would show up and playing a name brand, a team that's coming to the SEC. I mean, that would be all the storylines, Sark versus Kiffin. It would be fun.
Arch Manning, which has nothing to do with anything as far as on the field. But fortunately, we're not here to talk about Arch Manning unless Arch gets in like the transfer portal because Quinn Ewers is returning to Texas. Is it too early for that?
He's going to go to Mississippi State because Lebby's there now.
I love that. That's and Cooper Manning's going to get an off the field role on his staff. I am curious to see which all coaches, if any, follow Jeff Lebby to Mississippi State. I think one I'm keeping an eye on is John David Baker getting a promotion.
He's going to get the band back together, Ben.
Randy Clements is going to be his offensive line coach.
We're going to get Randy Clements. Probably going to get Joe John Finley.
Yeah.
Which is not as surefire because he is an Oklahoma guy. So it'd be a lateral move, but maybe he gives him a little bit more autonomy as one of the Bryles. At least one is going to be there.
Yeah. Kendall's going to be the OC. DJ Durkin, will he be the defensive coordinator? Mike Elko's now at Texas A&M here. After what an eventful weekend. What a ridiculous weekend. What better encapsulates
Durkin was in Oxford over the weekend.
Ooh.
I don't know in what capacity or what he was doing, but he was there.
Tom Allen
maybe he was stopping by to say hey to folks before he went to Starkville. I don't know.
Adding some intrigue here to the Jeff Lebby hired Mississippi State.
It was pretty insane. I mean, Ross Bjork and A&M basically just get bullied out of hiring Mike Stoops.
And then, hey, at least they let Ross on the private plane to bring Mike Elko back. You know, the people who actually made the decision, the boosters, let him on the plane. But also, it's the most Ross thing ever. I mean, at some point, it's you, man.
Did you see the meme that was going around of like the Texas A&M search?
No. I'm
going to describe it for the listeners, but I'm going to send it to you as well. It's the meme of like the old like grandpa at Christmas holding up the shirt that he got, and it's the exact same shirt he's wearing.
It's the exact same thing. It's the exact same thing.
Also, like
at some point, it's you. Is all I'm saying. It's like back when Ole Miss hired Matt Luke, he was going to hire Dave Dorn. It was done. And not to say Dave Dorn would have been any good.
Look at Dave Dorn, though, baby.
Look at Dave. Look at Dave. He's doing a great job.
Dude, him calling out Steve Smith a couple weeks ago, that got me fired up.
Go into your post-game press conference. What are we doing here? Goes into his post-game press conference after the regular season finale on Saturday and says essentially, hey, fans, I needed you to give $100 out of each one of your paychecks or blah, blah, blah. Bro, you're making $5 million. $5 million. Tom Allen's getting paid $20 million not to coach Indiana.
$20 million buyout. What
Jimbo's getting paid $26,000 a day. I'm sure that Jimbo's still got an allegiance somewhere, right? Whoever his team was growing up. Dude, take 1 day's salary and go buy a wide receiver. You know what I mean? Like 1 day. But you're asking people who make between 50 to 150 a year to give out of their pocket. I mean, they are giving, first of all, but you're asking for more. Bro, you're making $5 million. $5 million. It's your program. And wait a second. I thought this had nothing to do with recruiting. You know, that's what the NCAA said. And yet every single time a coach speaks, they say, what?
Yeah, why can't
we need more money for NIL? I don't know.
Yeah, what's going to stop coaches from just putting a game check or something into the collective? Just do that.
That I agree. You know, every single time the Atlanta Braves sign a new player, 1% goes to the Braves Foundation.
They're getting Ohtani, Ben. They're getting Ohtani.
Why not, when you sign Spencer Sanders, 1% goes to the Grove Collective? I don't know. Right? Because at this point, it's just silly. You're asking normal folks to help buy the players that, quite frankly, if you weren't already in the business of it beforehand, well, you're kind of shit. SOL. I'm trying not to say bad words as much anymore, but shit out of luck.
There it is.
Yeah,
we got the E.
We got it in there. So Dave Dorn was going to be the head coach of Ole Miss football, and then Ross, because of response or whatever it might be, pivots and hires Matt Luke. Same thing happens at Texas A&M on a much bigger scale, and people are going, what is Ross Bjork doing? Being Ross Bjork.
Hey, I will say,
He's a survivor. Let's just put it that way.
Since the almost Dave Doran hire, which would have been 2020,
Yes.
he has gone 8-4, 9-3, 8-5, and he's 9-3 this year at NC State.
He's a good coach. He's a good coach. Yeah. He's an objectively good coach. Would he have been the right coach at the right time? No. I don't know. He'd have been better than Matt Luke, but Matt's a good dude.
Would have been better than Matt Luke. Wouldn't have been as exciting.
No.
But good coach.
This is what Ross Bjork does, is what I'm saying. Ross Bjork somehow finds a way. He's a good dude. I had a good relationship with, still do. I mean, if he called me, he'd be very cordial. Having said that, Ross is the best, one of the best in this profession at absolving himself of any and all blame, possible blame. Now, Texas A&M, he's gotten right up to the edge of, wait a second, maybe it's the AD. But the fact that all that stuff went down with Ole Miss, and yet everyone continued to say essentially the same thing. Yeah, but it's not Ross's fault. That's the mark of a true survivor, man. Now people are going, wait a second, there's a pattern developing here, but that's none of our business. Our business is Ole Miss recruiting. And today on #NotCommitted, I'm ready to fire it up. I'm ready to get portal season kicked off because there's some names. There's some names that are hitting the portal already. This is about to be the surge. Before we jump into individual names and really break down what we know right now, set the stage for the portal opening for Ole Miss football specifically. Some names have already gotten in there, some interesting names, intriguing names. But for you, when you look at Ole Miss from who you're talking to, everything you've gathered, where kind of is Ole Miss? What is the first directive as they dip into the portal now?
I'd imagine it's going to be heavy in the trenches. I would imagine this staff is going to go after at least one or two offensive linemen, experienced guys that have played a lot somewhere, either grad transfers or first-time transfers that can be eligible immediately, that have played a lot of football. I'd venture to guess, and this is my opinion, this is not sourced or, nobody's told me this. I would think they would go after, a 3-4 year starter or grad transfer that is older and experienced to come in alongside the young talent that they believe in. But I don't know that for sure. I feel like offensive linemen, sure, it's great to sign a 4 or 5 star, develop them inside your program, but 4 and 5 star offensive linemen are A, hard to get, and B, if they are in the portal, everybody's going to want them. So I think you're going to have to get a little savvy with who you go after. There are some names that are popping up out there, some big-time offensive linemen. There's some Ivy League guys that are graduated looking to go play at a Power 5 level. There's some Patriot League guys out there that are graduating, getting their name out there to get on the market and try to go play, a 1-year stopgap before the NFL. And then I think they're probably going to look for an edge or an interior guy. I think that Joshua Harris is probably moving on. Stephen Wynn's moving on. Several of the transfer guys that were older went through senior day activities. And I'd imagine they are going to look for some big time targets up front. They've got a ridiculously loaded 2024 defensive line class, but as we all know, it's really hard to count on those true freshmen to play right away in the SEC. It's not a knock on anybody. I mean, it's just hard. It's a difficult league. And as an 18-year-old to come in and be asked to get a push and make some plays behind the line of scrimmage in the SEC, it's tough. So I think they're going to go heavy up front in the trenches, and then I would imagine at least a corner or two and probably a big-time receiver. I think Trey Harris is probably gone. I think he did enough he put enough on film and did enough on the field, even though he had the slow start because of the injury. Whereas the opposite end of the spectrum, I think Caden Priestcorn probably comes back. Didn't get a lot on film. He was banged up all year. I mean, you could see it. Credit to the guy because of everything he went through off the field, and then he still pushed through it and
And
was a
notably, too,
huge.
something needs to be mentioned here. In previous years, before the advent of NIL, a player like Caden Priestcorn, who transferred in and played and was productive enough, he was productive enough if he'd wanted to go. But the only question about him, in other years, he would be a no doubt slam dunk. He would be leaving. You can't improve your draft stock anymore. But now that kids can make real money through collectives to stay at schools, there is a real incentive to stay if you're not going to improve your stock at all. If you are what you are,
Yeah.
stay and make a guaranteed amount of money rather than go be a late to undrafted pick
Mm-hmm.
and then run the risk of your career being over by the spring. Not to say that would happen with Caden Priestcorn because he's a great inline blocker. That's going to be his greatest strength for NFL draft evaluators and scouts. They love his blocking ability out of the tight end spot, and he's going to make a roster somewhere. Having said that, you kind of free yourself, if that's the best way to put it, free yourself of the risk of it being over and making guaranteed money, a little bit more guaranteed money. He's a mature guy. He's married. He's got a kid. He's settled in Oxford. This is his job.
Yeah.
You know, that's
That's
the
a
thing. This is his
huge
job.
thing.
Yeah, this is his
Yeah,
job.
he's got a family. It's not just him.
Yeah, so the guaranteed money matters to him. I think that could be a real consideration. And I agree. I would tend to predict that Caden Priestcorn returns. I think Trey's gone. And one thing you need to understand, just because guys are gone that had big NIL money, well, let's allocate that money for Trey Harris for whoever. Pick a wide receiver in the portal that they might like. Barry and Brown isn't in the portal, but if he got into the portal, Ole Miss would be clearly the favorite for the former five-star prospect who took a step back weirdly at Kentucky this year and probably had to do with quarterback play, maybe offensive scheme. I don't know. Barry and Brown is a player that Ole Miss absolutely adores, and if he got into the portal, that'd be one you'd absolutely need to keep an eye on. Speaking of offensive linemen, since we're on that, Holy Cross offensive tackle Luke Newman got into the portal today. He was an FCS preseason All-American, a three-time All-Patriot League selection. That's the kind of player we're talking about as far as how Ole Miss could fill out its offensive line. But if a Trey leaves, Spencer Sanders is off the books, $200,000 or whatever it was. He's off the books. It's not like all of a sudden, okay, we'll take that $200,000 and go buy two linemen and a wide receiver. That's just not how it's going to work because you got to remember, too, baked into this now is the renegotiation with current players. Jackson Dart's going to expect a pay bump. Quinshawn, your $1 million man, is going to expect a pay bump. Jordan Watkins, if he stays, which we expect, is going to expect a pay bump. On and on and on. I think Trey Harris, for the right amount, might really be tempted to stay. But having said that, that's where the allocation and the manipulation of the numbers or making the numbers work, that's where it comes into play. You have to do the calculus that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and there's going to be some attrition. It's going to be like this every year. With the one-time free transfer rule helping student athletes where they can go reset somewhere, move back closer to home, go to a better opportunity, all of that, it's going to happen. So, yeah, there are a lot of factors going into this decision-making process. But, yeah, I would imagine offensive line, wide receiver, and defensive back. Linebacker is one where I think if there is a experienced guy that could come in, kind of a la Chance Campbell a couple years ago, someone that could come in and be a cerebral leader in the middle. I do think they've got some really talented pieces at linebacker on the outside. Suntarian Perkins, you've got TJ Dudley. I do think they have.
It's Suntarian, by the way.
I do think there is potential for a budding star in Tyler Banks. I think Pete Golding likes him a lot. He played a ton of special teams, big physical guy. He could play in the middle, but if you can go out and get someone, maybe like an Ethan Barr from Vanderbilt, Texas guy, has ties to the staff, was recruited before, made a lot of tackles at Vanderbilt, could potentially maybe call him up, see if he wants to come play at another SEC school and be the guy in the middle. So
right now we should note that Ole Miss, we've been told, doesn't have a ton of early interest, at least in Barr from Vandy. But yeah, I mean, he fits kind of what they would be looking for. I mean, you're looking for production in the middle. And you look at the roster overall, And you mentioned Tyler Banks. That's a great one to bring up. Not only do you have to consider the calculus for pay raises with your current roster, but also guys who still have their 1-year penalty-free transfer, you're going to have to recruit to keep them, because there are schools that are probably not necessarily with Tyler Banks, but we're using him as an example. There are teams already like, hey, Tyler, you've only done this through 2 years. You come here, blah, 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 blah. So that's another part of it as well. And it's easy to just go, well, Spencer Sanders is falling off the ledger, and Trey Harris is probably going to fall off the ledger, and Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste and Monty Montgomery, guys like that you paid real money to go get out of the portal. But before you go moving on to needs, the very next thing you have to consider is, first, who's going to be needing pay bumps to stay. And then you can start to make real evaluations as far as, is it worth it for Ole Miss to be paying whoever this amount of money because of the position they play or whatever it might be. I mean, these are all considerations now in recruiting, which is crazy to think because it's essentially free agency. I mean, it's free agency without the title. It's the allocation of dollars, and does it make sense as far as dollars and cents for Ole Miss to do things rather than, oh, yeah, that's the hard thing for me, is that I'm watching the Egg Bowl, and I'm like, who all of these players are Ole Miss down the line going to really remember? Really remember? Is Zach Evans going to be a great Rebel to you? You know, he's gone, but like, Dean Leonard comes on Sunday Night Football and says, Dean Leonard, Ole Miss. And I went, oh, yeah, Dean. For 2 years, I mean, he was the first real success story of an underappreciated transfer ad that came in and started games, and now he's an NFL player. But if A.J. Brown had gone on which he does, had gone on national television, said A.J. Brown, Ole Miss, the response is different. Not to say that Dean isn't beloved or that Ole Miss fans aren't appreciative of him, but it's just the attachment that you used to have to players. It's not the same anymore. It's not. Yeah. So we can talk about this in a very matter-of-fact way. And in that way, pick your guy. You know, like Ole Miss, if they can improve anywhere, they're going to try to, because 10-2 means they're right on the precipice with an expanded playoff coming next year and no Alabama game. Ole Miss is on the precipice of being an every year contender for the playoff, regardless of what little brother is doing with Lane Kiffin, Light, and Starkville.
Yeah, it's a different type of college football now, and I understand there are people out there that say, well, there's no use in keeping up with recruiting now because you sign somebody and then a year or two later they just leave. Well, okay, sure, but old-fashioned traditional recruiting is still in effect. It still happens on a daily basis. It's high school recruiting is still going to be the backbone of your program. You still need to recruit.
Even if you're really buying first rights to a player.
Sure.
That's all it is. You know, maybe Aiden Williams, like he did this year, comes in, a highly ranked guy, gets all this pub and doesn't really do anything like we all feared he might. And then the first question is, well, is almost going to be able to keep him? Well, that's part of the calculus as well. It has to be. But also, that's a better negotiating place to start than these other, because you have his rights. You know what I mean? Like you can say, this is what the role will be for you.
It's kind of like the base. Yeah. It's like the baseball recruiting thing with, you know, somebody like, oh my God, I'm drawing a blank on his name. Just any, you know, draft risk baseball prospect.
Cooper Pratt.
God. Yeah. You take his commitment and you sign him because you never know. I mean, it's a little different with baseball because the risk is they just don't show up at all. But no, in football, you sign them. And, you know, hey, maybe they're a surefire starter as a true freshman. Maybe they're not. But you still get them on campus and you figure it out. I was wrong on Aiden Williams, and I wasn't the only one. I mean, Charles Power, Cody Belair, everybody on three raved about him as a high school senior and in the all-star setting.
The Talk of Champions podcast network is brought to you in part by the Ole Miss Athletics Foundation. It's getting close to the end of 2023. And if you need to make year-end donations for tax purposes, call the Ole Miss Athletics Foundation and they'll walk you through their philanthropic giving initiatives. Whether it's the Vault Society or Empower, both initiatives give you a tax-deductible way to support the Champions Now campaign for Ole Miss Athletics. Or if you're working on estate planning, call the Ole Miss Athletics Foundation to discuss Forever Ole Miss. For further information, call 662-915-7159. That's 662-915-7159. Or visit givetoathletics.com. That's givetoathletics.com. It's the Ole Miss Athletics Foundation, a proud sponsor of the Talk of Champions podcast network.
Are you looking at cutting your health insurance premiums by as much as 20 to 30%? Are you aging into Medicare and need help finding a Medicare supplement plan? Call Drew Moak of USA Benefits Group at 601-953-8449. Drew is an Ole Miss grad located in Mississippi and licensed in 7 states. He works with the nation's second largest health insurance brokerage with access to 35 different carriers, and he can help you with any of your health insurance needs. From regular health plans to life insurance to dental and vision and even Medicare, he has it all covered. Now more than ever, it is critical to have a health insurance agent who is local and accessible. So call Drew Moak at 601-953-8449 and get your free quote today.
The College Corner is headed to Oxford. Stop by their new location in the Oxford Commons off Sisk Avenue. They'll have 4,000 square feet of Rebel gear ready for your trip to the Grove. On your next trip to Oxford, stop by the College Corner or our other great locations in Ridgeland and Flowood. Hats, shirts, polos, pullovers, sweats, t-shirts. College Corner has it all. And as always, you can visit us online at collegecornerstore.com. That's collegecornerstore.com. The College Corner, where your game day apparel meets.
We've all been there before. A weekend trip to the casino canceled because real life came calling. Well, MyBookie's new and improved online casino is here to change the game. Dive into a truly realistic casino experience featuring the latest in slots, progressive jackpots, and live dealer action, all from the comfort of your own home. Take advantage of weekly blackjack tournaments and a brand new collection of high-end games for a chance at real cash rewards. The MyBookie Casino provides a Las Vegas experience when the action's in your hands. And the best part is you don't even need to wear pants. Your adventure at the MyBookie Casino begins today with a generous sign-up bonus using promo code TOC for Talk of Champions, TOC. That's promo code TOC to secure yourself a sweet deposit bonus. And that's not all, because their revamped loyalty program ensures that you'll be showered with rewards, including free spins, cashback offers, and a host of exclusive VIP perks. The more you play, the more you win. Play anytime, anywhere with the MyBookie Casino. And make sure to check out MyBookie for all your gaming needs at www.mybookie.ag. That's www.mybookie.ag. See, my thing with Aiden Williams is it's not as if Cody Belair or you or me or even Lane Kiffin pubbing him up in the preseason missed on predicting a breakout true freshman year for him, so much as it speaks to a bigger issue with Lane Kiffin. It's specifically in regards to highly ranked wide receivers, J.J. Henry, Barry and Brown, Aiden Williams. Pick your guy, developing wide receivers or getting them on the field immediately. And maybe it's across the board too. I think it's less about the talent and what they could be, then Lane Kiffin has very little patience or tolerance for mistakes. And you have to live with mistakes with true freshmen. And in this culture, when you can just go buy veterans who've been through it, I'll rather take the surefire, maybe lesser at certain spots than having to rely on, I don't know, what is already inherently unreliable, if that makes sense, right? Like, he doesn't trust them, it feels like, more than anything else. And you spoke earlier about developing offensive linemen, signing the 4 and 5 stars. That's, I think, one issue moving forward that Lane Kiffin could address and will need to address. It's when you bring these guys in, these highly ranked players out of high school, you need an interior defensive tackle. Well, where's the defensive tackle you signed in state last year who was a 4-star? I think that is where he can really show the most improvement. And maybe it's philosophically allowing himself to trust these kids more. I don't know. Maybe there is just something weird development. I don't know. But there are candidates on the roster, like an Aiden Williams, that should be making an impact, and we should be talking about, as far as year 2, that's not what we're talking about. I mean, the fact that Aiden Williams just never really played, even against ULM. I mean, I'm in the stands for ULM. I had a big New Albany section, and Aiden Williams got in a couple of times. But it was Jordan Watkins, Dayton Wade, and Trey Harris. He trusts veterans.
People have asked me about Aiden Williams specifically the last couple of days. If you pin me down and ask me for an answer right now, I don't think he's getting in the portal. I don't think the staff has given up on him or doesn't believe in him. It's hard. Being a true freshman and playing a lot is hard. And this offense that Lane Kiffin runs is a very convoluted, difficult offense to learn quickly as a wide receiver. You're asked to do a lot. This isn't just Phil Longo get open offense where it's like, hey, just do what you did in high school, but now you're doing it against really good Power 5 players. No, it's different. It's
24 plays, 24 to 27 plays, go chase grass.
It's an actual offense. You have to run routes. You have to know
there is a route
audibles. Tree. There's calls that you have to adjust to. Kiffin's doing. It's real.
But for every freshman to go through the same developmental track, especially at wide receiver, is concerning because you can point to Quinshawn and say, well, look at Quinshawn. He was a true freshman, set a single season. But that's a position where Lane Kiffin has no problem just trusting talent over competency, over every down competency. Because if you watch just the raw traits, Sonny P, as far as raw traits, it's not close with him and Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste and Monty Montgomery and yet Ashanti Sistrunk. But yet playing the vast majority of snaps are those veterans because they're where they're supposed to be. And I think living without busts or alleviating that risk is kind of what Lane Kiffin is most concerned about, or maybe what keeps him from really trusting freshmen. Or if they make a mistake, that really costing them their significant playing time. It's hard for him to live. Now, that's completely conjecture on my part, completely conjecture. But you have to consider that as well when you're looking at Ole Miss's portal pursuits. What are they going to have to pay, or what are they going to have to tell Aiden Williams? What are they going to have to tell Centurion Perkins? I already butchered his name again. Sonny P. It does. I mean, whatever. Pick your guy. Tyler Banks, DeMarco Williams, who had a good year in reserve for Ole Miss in the defensive backfield, could really have an expanded role next year. Well, they expect more money. They expect a pay bump, right? Or you're going to have to do some persuading. So it's a hard job at the start here, which is really the end of November, early December. But we have an idea, I think, as far as what they're going to be pursuing. And fortunately for Ole Miss, they're not really forced, if they don't want to be, to go big game hunting at the biggest positions outside of edge. They need edge rushers, but everybody needs edge rushers. Everybody wants edge rushers, but they're not going and buying a quarterback. They're not going and I mean, they would love to keep Trey Harris or find someone the equivalent. Barry Brown gets in, an impact. But we both think that Deion Smith, that's just a matter of when, not if. It's been a matter of when, not if, since last October, since we started talking to people about him. So, you bring him in and he replaces Trey Harris, and that's essentially the player that Lane was just obsessed with coming out of high school. And maybe that's the answer there. And then you can go and spend that money after the allocation of money towards retention. You could then go address needs, which to me feels like offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, certainly in the secondary, especially if you lose some numbers. That's where they really did well in the portal, I think, last offseason. And you look at names, we've obviously already mentioned a few of them. Barry Brown, if he gets in, would be an obvious name. Luke Newman from Holy Cross, the offensive lineman who got in today. Michigan State linebacker Darius Snow has entered the NCAA transfer portal. There are a number of guys that make sense, but what do we know right this minute?
Yeah, it's also not only who makes sense, but who fits the scheme, the plan. I mean, that's big on, we were just talking about Aiden Williams. Sure, he could be a special guy next year. He could be a huge part of the offense next year. It just hasn't clicked for him yet. But there is a reason that he was recruited. There is a reason the staff believed in him because they think he's a good fit for the offense. So it isn't just, okay, go look at the portal list and see who the highest ranked guy is and then go get him. They got to make sure that he fits. Like Isaac Ukwu was prioritized in the portal because they thought his skill set fit what they needed opposite Cedric Johnson, opposite Jared Ivey. There was a reason. Yeah, he was a really highly coveted guy out of the portal. Lots of people wanted him, but it's got to be a fit too. So it's not just a very simple plug and play thing here. It's Kiffin has a very specific way he goes about looking at players. You mentioned he trusts his guys that know what they're doing and they're experienced.
I mean,
think
Ole
that's
Miss doesn't
huge.
really rotate, Zach. I mean, they don't. They play their guys, like 30 guys.
I think that's the biggest thing with Aiden Williams is he just wasn't out there a lot because that maybe they just didn't trust him. I don't think Kiffin trusted him to be able to do what they needed in the offense. Dayton Wade, Jordan Watkins, Trey Harris, those were the three main guys all year. They were able. They were old. I mean, Jordan Watkins, obviously another year in the system. He knew the offense like the back of his hand. Dayton Wade worked his tail off, earned a scholarship. He knew the offense. Trey Harris, obviously, the onboarding process with him was ramped up because they needed a guy like him to be the number one dude, and he was able to grasp it. It's not a knock on Aiden Williams. He's just not there yet. So, sure, it's possible he could get in the portal. I don't think he will. I think this staff truly believes in him being a difference maker in 2024 and beyond. But, yeah, that's part of this portal process that, you and I talked about it yesterday. This is kind of fun for us, where it's like a scavenger hunt to go through and try to piece together who fits, who we think that the staff is going to be interested in. Are there connections? That's part of, the quote silly season.
Yeah, and reaching out to all your sources and be like, all right, what about this guy? And getting back, well, yeah, but maybe. And then it turns out, well, he's coming in for a visit in 2 days. I mean, there's a lot of intentional misinformation out there, but also we have a hold on where they're going and what they want to do. But identification of early candidates, I think we pretty much hit it on the head as far as what we know right now. But there's so many more that we're not even talking about yet. So many guys that, and this is also the pre-portal season too, even though it's about to really kick into high gear. And what I mean by that is there's already been overtures to Ole Miss players and Ole Miss to other players on other rosters. It's just what happens now. And the Ole Miss might be down the road with a number of guys, just like some Ole Miss players we're talking about right now, not Aiden Williams, but maybe a player that is already down the line with another school. That's another part of the broken system here. However, as far as what we do and talking about it and covering it, it's really fun. It's really fun because you can address needs immediately. So if it's Darius Snow from Michigan State, a linebacker that was a 4-star, 3-4-star coming out of high school, if it's Luke Newman, Victor Kern, for example, doesn't get enough credit. He was probably one of the top 5 most impactful transfers, without question, Ole Miss had in last portal cycle. Imagine this offensive line without Victor Kern. So who is the next Victor Kern? Can you get 3 Victor Kerns? 3 Victor Kerns would go a long way in helping this offense take the next step. But also Jackson Dart's expecting a pay bump. And I've actually seen the numbers for a couple of these kids, and it ain't cheap. It ain't cheap. So that's all part of the calculus now and what we're going to be paying attention to. Who do you know for sure right now? Deion Smith doesn't really count, I guess, because he's JUCO. But Deion Smith, we believe, is going to happen sooner rather than later. Who do we know they've been talking to, visits and stuff like that?
I'd imagine there's been some form of communication with McKeelan Pounders at Memphis. I've talked to a couple people around the Memphis program. They think that he's thinking of seeing what his opportunities would be if he entered the portal. Played a lot for Memphis this year, a good Memphis team, 9-3. They were damn close to going 10-2. Blew a game against Tulane, which is another very good team. Ole Miss beat. Ole Miss flipped him from Mississippi State. Things happened before signing day. Did not sign him, and he landed at Memphis. I could see that being someone that Ole Miss reaches out to. Another Memphis lineman from Pearl, Mississippi, Davian Carter is another name that I've heard from a couple people. Potentially a guy that could get in the portal. See who he might hear from. Another guy that played a lot of football at Memphis on a really good offense. There's been some defensive backs, some names that I've heard. Michigan State going through a change there. Mel Tucker's gone. I know a lot of the players that were on that roster were big fans of Mel Tucker. signed to play for Mel Tucker. They're looking around, trying to see where they could land. Chance Tucker's a cornerback from Michigan State. Could be a name to know. I posted a couple updates in recruiting threads over the weekend, last week. We'll try to piece together. I updated the hot list for the 24 class. Ben and I will probably put our heads together this week and put together some kind of hot list for portal names to know. The portal officially opens December 4th. Right now, when you see these names pop up on Twitter, on Instagram, whatever, it's guys that are planning to enter the portal. So they're not obviously officially in it yet. Paperwork and all that has to be processed, and that will officially be in effect December 4th once they are in the portal. But right now, it's mostly guys that are letting their staffs know, letting their position coaches, their head coaches know, hey, I'm planning on leaving. So we'll probably have a much better idea of some names here in the next week. As you know, most regular seasons are done. We got championship week this week. But right now it's mostly guys that are, their regular season is done. They might have a bowl game coming up, but 2023 college football guys aren't going to play in a bowl game. They're probably going to get in the portal and try to get somewhere else, get enrolled, start trying to learn a playbook and try to earn a spot. So that's kind of it right now as far as some names to know for some players out there. I mentioned Pounders. The one big one, talking about a big-time receiver, the one that I've heard from multiple people, I think you've heard the same, Moose Muhammad from Texas A&M. As an offensive guy, I don't think Mike Elko tickles the fancy as much as another offensive head coach would have. So I think that's a player that has certainly had communication with not only Ole Miss, but several SEC staffs. There's another name out there that I mean, I'll put it out there because hell, he's already addressed it with folks in the media the last couple weeks. But wide receiver out of Houston, Matthew Golden, wide receiver from Houston, put up some really big numbers this year. Obviously, Dana Holgerson was relieved of his duties over the weekend. He's no longer the head coach in Houston, but Matthew Golden was a big part of the Cougs. 38 receptions, over 400 yards, 6 touchdowns, 6'1", 190 guy to Houston. Ole Miss recruits the state of Texas heavy. They've got some Texas guys on the staff. He has already talked to people in the media saying that SEC schools are offering 6 figures. Didn't mention specific schools, but one could imagine that Lane Kiffin could be one of those schools reaching out to him. He's a good receiver, probably looking to replace Trey Harris, maybe Watkins. So they're going to need to get guys like that are, older, played a lot of football, can come in and get up to speed quickly. So, right now it's hard to nail down exactly who.
It's so early. It's so early.
The Ole Miss staff is getting into that this week for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, they're in meetings. They're talking about who they need to prioritize, what position, specific names, all of that. Those conversations are happening as we speak this week. Ole Miss is going to be in, an Access New Year's Six Bowl. They're not playing
Maybe. Don't
count
count your chickens, buddy.
They're not playing this week. They're not playing next week. So, they're going to be practicing.
Because I still think they're probably best position for the Citrus Bowl, even despite results this weekend. I wouldn't count my chickens, man. Wouldn't count my chickens. Even though Citrus, Ole Miss, Texas in the Cotton
Citrus
Bowl
is an Access Bowl, is it not? Is it considered an Access Bowl? No.
No, I didn't think it was. Maybe. I don't think so.
I mean, it's January, right? It's
January, so it's an access. Okay. See, I don't ever understand that. It's the New Year's Six, and it's also access. I don't whatever. The Citrus Bowl would be an accomplishment. Bottom line, just don't let it be Iowa, please. God, please, not Iowa.
I think that'd be kind of fun.
What would be fun is Texas
be hilarious
in the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah.
And I cannot wait to watch the first really true red and blue Ole Miss person, it would not be me. Find Arch and go, Arch, what the hell happened? What went wrong? Are you transferring to Ole Miss? No.
Maybe we can talk to our friends at Inside Texas to get the scoop.
Arch Manning ain't going anywhere. Whatever. Jackson Dart's your quarterback.
Oh no, I just meant to ask him why.
Yeah. Hey,
he's not gonna say.
2 questions, Arch. Number 1, how dare you? And number 2, who do you think you are? There you go.
So technically, the New Year's Six: Orange Bowl, Sugar, Fiesta, Peach, Cotton, Rose.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the 6. So is that access, or is access include the other big January games? I don't know.
Just put Ole Miss in the Cotton Bowl, man, against Texas, and watch the money pour in. This has been another edition.
Easy moneymaker.
Hashtag not committed. I'm Ben Garrett at Spirit Ben on Twitter. He's Zach Berry at Zach_Berry. Lane Kiffin, before we get out of here, was into Carrollton, Georgia, right after the Egg Bowl to see Caleb Odom. That still looks like, Ole Miss is trending to fight for him as well. I wouldn't say that Ole Miss is going to secure the bag with him or secure him, but I think Ole Miss
cautious optimism.
Cautious optimism. That's a good way to put it. Keywan Lacey, man, the vibes were strong for Ole Miss for about 2 weeks, but I'm not feeling the same kind of strong vibes anymore. Looks like Alabama with him.
He's got to show up for a visit. If he doesn't, it's over.
Yeah. And other high school players we'll be talking about as well. We'll be doing these regularly now. It's the off season. It's the silly season. So Zach and I will be coming together to do recruiting shows and rumor mill shows. It'll all be here on the Talk of Champions podcast network. Simply search Talk of Champions in iTunes, and that's where you'll find this hashtag not committed, or my show, The Flagship, or his mini shows, Red and Blue Smoke, Hit That Line, Daytime Fireworks. Zach's all over the place as well. That's Talk of Champions. Just simply search it wherever you get your podcast. And when you do, leave a 5-star review. It doesn't matter what you say, as long as it's 5 stars. And if you sign up for our website, the Ole Miss Spirit, OleMissSpirit.com, and affiliate of On 3 today, you can get a sub for the low price of $1. And if you could go hang out in the library after a big Ole Miss win for a cover charge of $1, would you not do that? Then why would you not do that every day while you're sitting in a cubicle? Come hang out with us and talk about Ole Miss sports at the Ole Miss Spirit, OleMissSpirit.com, and affiliate of On 3. Before we get out of here, you put your finger up. What's up? What do you want to get out?
You want to go, if you got nothing to do next weekend, Starkville Burnside will be playing football at Von Hemingway Stadium. In the 7A state championship against Oak Grove, which I think will be a good game, and you get to see him.
How does Jeff Lebby's hire at Mississippi State impact Starkville Burnside, the 4-star wide receiver out of Starkville High School who decommitted from Mississippi State?
No free ads, but I know that some folks at Mississippi State, I can't remember who it was. It's a reporter, someone that covers Mississippi State. They asked him what he thought of the hire, and I think the quote from the reporter was he was not moved at all. So
you're sticking by your guns. You think it's Ole Miss or Alabama right now?
I think he's moved on from Mississippi State.
Okay.
And for those that want to play the fashion game, Stonka was wearing Ole Miss gloves in the semifinal win.
I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I saw Willie Gay do that. I saw Nakobe Dean do that. I'm not doing it.
Nakobe Dean threw up a fin. That's
right. Yeah.
Malpractice.
Yeah.
Mike Juarez threw up a fin. Remember him?
Yeah, I do, because it was because of Mike Juarez and Hugh Freeze's sole obsession with landing him in stars that led to them having to pivot after he inevitably stayed out west to a 2-star who had an offer from like Pittsburgh and didn't even visit. They like walked him around with their phone on a FaceTime call and showed him around. And he was like, "Oh yeah, I'll commit." I think it was Sean Curtis. Lasted a year and a half. But Hugh Freeze, when it comes to 4th and 20 plus, pisses down his leg.
What's Jannard Avery doing right now?
That's the one. That's the one that when
he's
Hugh
still
Freeze
in the league, isn't he?
Yeah. I don't know, but he stuck for a while. And God, if you had him right there in the middle for Ole Miss and those teams.
Oh yeah, he plays for the Colts.
Of course he does. Of course he does. Would have crawled to Ole Miss. It's 2023. State did make the most 2023 hire that State could have made with hiring Jeff Lebby, but that's for another podcast. Maybe one with me and Brian Haydad, who I'm about to talk to here in a minute, because
the Egg Bowl is just going to be even more fun now.
Oh God. That's what I'm saying. Like they have a sign at the airport that says "Go to hell, Ole Miss." It's like, find something else. It's fine. It's fine. He's Zach Berry. I'm Ben Garrett. Thank you, buddy.
See you, man.